Hey review family, keep it high, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morse, a review guy, and I'm back again to bring you another video, and in this one I'm going to be covering the new Fleshgod Apocalypse album, entitled Veleno. Apologies to any Italians. So Fleshgod Apocalypse is a symphonic death metal band, a technical death metal band from Italy, formed in 2007, and this is their 5th studio-length album. It's available now on Nuclear Blast Records. And usually I ask this at the end, but I'll go ahead and ask it now for a change. Before we get into the review, go ahead and comment down below what you thought of this album, because I'm very curious to hear all of your thoughts, because this is a very hyped up release, and I know that a lot of my subscribers were not only very excited for the album, but this review as well, and I'm just excited to discuss it, talk to you guys about it, and all that good stuff. So let's get into the review. I can't actually say if these are real orchestral elements that are put into their sound straight away, just because on their previous album, King, because of how expensive it was to get an orchestra, to get a symphony, that type of thing, they used different type of programs, sound programs, to kind of manufacture it. And it sounded pretty convincing, but it was a little bit subtle. And on this album, it could pretty much swing either way, because some of the orchestral and symphonic elements are very vivid, they're very lively, but at the same time they can also be a little bit subtle, a little bit back in the mix, not as prominent as I might like. The band is consistently crushing on this record, and I would say the mix is very good. That's one thing about this genre, and even previous Fleshgod Apocalypse albums, is if this genre gets a little bit too technical, a little bit too well produced, so clean that it begins to sound lifeless, which is an issue a lot of technical death metal bands have, it's kind of a turnoff for me. It's something that I will not be that intrigued with, that interested in. I kind of do want a little bit more raw aesthetic with it. For the most part on this album, though, I don't think it sounds very mechanical. I feel like it sounds very organic and, once again, lively. Like, take the first track, Fury. The blast beats are absolutely ferocious, and the introduction gets you right into the chaos, but then quickly descends into some chugging riffs and some drums that make them sound like war drums for marching into battle, and some choir vocals thrown in them make it sound like something from a Two Steps from Hell song. The pianos sound great on this track, and a lot of times they sound pretty good on this album. I just wish they were a little bit more prominent. They can feel a little bit subtle in the mix, more so than I would have liked, and the metal instrumentation can kind of engulf them a little bit. The breaking down of the instrumentation near the middle part of this track, specifically the 2-minute mark, is honestly some of the best, like, breakdown instrumentation I've heard in a while. I'm not calling it a breakdown, I'm saying the breaking down of the instrumentation. The way these drum and cymbal hits sound like gunshots are so satisfying, and the way the choir vocals come back in, it makes it sound so epic, so grandiose. It's just so powerful, and the guitar solo on this track also has this epic, grand feel to it. It doesn't overstay its welcome either. The introduction for Carnivorous Lamb has this hopeful feel to it, the guitar sounding like some kind of toned-down power metal introduction, and the pianos add this nice shimmering quality. The guitars and the drums can maintain this Victorian-era macabre feel to them for the first half, but for the most part, it's business as usual by this album's standards, and I'm not a big fan of the screamed vocals on this track, which is something we will get into throughout this review, but those kind of just screamed, I know it's trying to be epic, I know it's trying to fit in with the instrumentation, but a lot of times when they pop in, I don't know why, maybe it's just me, I don't really get behind them as much as I maybe should. Sugar opens up with these whispered vocals that remind me so much of like a graveyard spirit from World of Warcraft, if anyone's familiar with that. The drums are absolutely massive on this track. They sound like 5 million feet tall skyscrapers just towering over the world below it, which would be the rest of the band. And the orchestral bits on this track are very well received, but can get a little bit drowned out once again. But still, the way the pianos just kind of swirl around in the background adds so much depth to this track, and the choir vocals once again come back in full flourish, and once again, I don't really like the screamed vocals on this track. The one thing I will say about these choir vocals is they add a lot of dimension to these tracks. They're very nice sounding. They add this epic feel to it. It makes it sound so like larger than life. It adds this symphonic element, but I do lean more towards maybe this being a sound program type thing, because they can feel a little bit stereotypical by that front. And anyone that's listening to the sound will know what I mean, that just kind of tropish, that And I don't want to downgrade them, I don't want to like give them less credit than they deserve, because they do add a lot of just spice to these tracks when they do pop in. It's just something I do want to point out, that they can feel a little bit manufactured, a little bit fabricated. From the calm, kind of poised interlude of the praying mantis' strategy, we go straight into Mona Lisa, which I can only describe as the type of track that you would see on one of those cringy anime AMVs, but like better. The vocals in the introduction sound like they are a little bit manipulated with effects, but I do not believe they are pitched down. They are super ominous and creepy, and the rolling drum fills and kind of low guitar playing adds to that creepiness, but then the pianos just make it reach its fever pitch of ominousness. And I just love that one refrain that "you make me lose my mind." It has so much vibrato and swagger to it, it makes it sound like it's a play, which isn't that uncommon considering if you've seen their live performances and the outfits they wear. It's actually amazing. Please look up their live performances. Absinthe is a 6-minute, 9-second epic in the middle of this track listing, and I'll be real, I enjoy Fleshgod Apocalypse. I have been a little bit lukewarm on some of their past records, but I will say this, I didn't expect them to come through with a track that was this hard hitting this far into the track listing. The screamed vocals in the intro do not interest me still on this track listing, but the track itself is fairly well constructed, and while it is a little bit mundane and tedious in my eyes in the first half, as it glides into that 2-minute mark, the instrumentation cannot really be denied, with lightning fast drum playing, cutthroat guitars like a labyrinth, and just visceral vocals, enraged vocals. The guitar solo is so harmonious, so epic, it sounds so vibrant. Sounds like something you could maybe get from like a melodic death metal band. I'll go ahead and say there's one section where I do enjoy those scream vocals quite a bit, that being on the track Embrace the Oblivion, which otherwise is pretty much by the numbers, but the just emotional, heartbreaking break of the instrumentation makes it sound like the emotional, heartbreaking part of like a speech from an epic fantasy movie or an epic historical movie such as Braveheart. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I enjoyed this album quite a lot. I think it's a great symphonic metal album and one of the best in a while, in a genre that I can't usually get behind, just simply because of the overproduction, how like much they try to make things epic, how like overwrought and garish it can usually seem, but I think Fleshgod Apocalypse keeps it very organic, keeps it very lively, from an instrumental standpoint, from a vocal standpoint, from a mixing standpoint, and while those orchestral elements could have been a little bit more prominent in the mix, I'm pretty okay with it. Overall, I like the sound quite a bit. I highly suggest it. Definitely one of the best symphonic metal albums I've heard this year, if not the best. I'm going to be giving this album an 8 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Please stay for the end screen. I'll link some videos that you might be interested in. Did you enjoy this album? What's your thoughts of it? Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. It'll help me out a lot. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. And I'll talk to you next time. But until then, my name is Jay Morse, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.